Game 3 between the Celtics and Nets is about to be tonight. And Kyrie Irving had some comments before heading back to Boston for the first time in front of fans. So when we get into Boston racism, that has been one of the two main faces for where racism takes place in the NBA, the other being Utah. I'll share a bit on that soon. But the problem is with Boston is I think that it's kind of deductive when it gets talked about at times because we just see a lot of people reduce it to KKK, and it leads to a lot of unserious conversation in that regard, when the reality is Boston is in Massachusetts, one of the safest blue states, and we have to stop viewing racism just as something that KKK types do. Boston, just like almost every other major city in the country, is liberal. We need to realize that liberal racism is just as much of a big thing as the conservative racism. And so many NBA players get to experience both sides of it. Kyrie Irving's teammate Tristan Thompson earlier today, he went on to talk about how he experienced subtle racism back when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, but now doesn't have that issue now that he is part of the Boston Celtics. And when you see the reaction from Kyrie Irving, you would know that he has experienced both the positive and negative end of the racism you'll see in Boston. What often gets left out of the discussion is, regardless of how blue of a major city you have, you're always going to have those more conservative surrounding areas, even just in your suburbs, which are still connected to your metropolitan area. So the point is that there's a lot of people out there who are ignorant to the instances of the liberal racism that take place in our society. Liberals are only noticing the conservative racism and are either come to defense of people who are liberals who have moments of being racist. And as you'll see, there is some examples of people denying the experience that you'll see with racism. Don't forget, we can't just reduce it to a Boston or Utah thing. This has the potential to happen everywhere. Even New York. Even Los Angeles. Let's hear what Dan. Let's get into the quote from Danny Ainge. So this came from a radio appearance on 98.5 The Sports Hub. I think that we take those kind of things seriously. I never heard of that from any player I've ever played with in my 26 years in Boston. I've never heard that before from Kyrie. I talked to him quite a bit, so I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. We're just playing basketball. Players can say what they want. Ooh. Look at how tone deaf those comments are. But to give you a bit of background on Danny Ainge, he went to college at BYU. So that's going to shape his perspective in a negative way. And even if he didn't mean to be tone deaf with those comments, he at best was just ignorant. When you look at the Boston Celtics and all the recent draft picks they've accumulated, the times that they've had cap space to sign some big name free agents, there's also been quite a few free agents who have passed up wanting to sign there, tell their agents and teams to not deal with Boston. And I point out Danny Ainge, and quotes like these are why he's had to build more and more internally and settle for the second and third tier, option C, option B, and option D when it comes to bringing in big name free agents. When you look at who the Boston Celtics have brought in via free agency, Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, and Kemba Walker, those were not option A guys for Boston. The guys that they really wanted, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. I'm sure they would have liked to be in on LeBron James as well. There's a reason why they've been passed up. And it matters who the people are in charge of these NBA teams. And when you've got someone like Danny Ainge, who is not cognizant of the issues that go on in Boston, a place that he's been there for 26 years, how does he ignore all those moments of the home fans and the countless instances of racial slurs being shouted at opposing players? Team culture matters when it comes to your favorite sports franchise having a chance for success. When your coach, your GM are more insensitive to the issues of race, then it makes sense why the Boston Celtics have not become a true top tier team. Then when you look at other teams who are building a real culture sensitive to relationships with their players, the issues that matter to them. They're figuring out ways to be successful. And the first team at the one of the best cultures that currently exist in the NBA is the Denver Nuggets. Just ask Austin Rivers. He's only been on the team for about a month, and this is the most accepted that he's ever been in any team that he's played for in his career.